Bam! What is going on, folks? MC is in the house. My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. This is a show that I do every week at noon Eastern Standard Time, streaming on a couple of platforms, YouTube, Facebook, a couple of pages on Facebook, X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. For those of you that have not gone to my email list, go to masterchim.com. There you will find an opt-in form to give me your email. When you give me your email, I will send you a promo code for a free program that I usually sell for $47, and it's just to get on my email list. So put your email in, you'll get free emails, and I think they're pretty good. I'm a little biased, but I got a lot of people that read them, and you could do it too for free. Go to masterchim.com. All the links are down in the description, no matter where you're at. All right, what do we got here? Jesse, what's up? Good afternoon to you. Corey, what's up? Sean. Derek, what's up, my man? Joe Homebuyer. If you are in Central Valley, California, or anywhere else for that matter, and you want to sell your house, go check out my people at Joe Homebuyer. All right. Zuli, what up? Jamie, what's up? Aaron, good to see you. My two Canadians holding it down. All right, so a great group so far, starting this off. Let's get to the topic. So I sent out an email this morning, and if you were on my email list, you would have gotten that email talking about today's talk, and I shared a quote, and the quote is, "The safeties we seek are the very chains that bind us. The safeties we seek are the very chains that bind us." So what do I mean by that? It is a counterintuitive universal fact that the safer we are, we tend to pass a point of diminishing returns where that safety starts to become unproductive, right? So a couple of years ago, I created and put out, this was like at the beginning of the pandemic, I put out this thing called the Prep Zone. And it's really what I've since titled more generally the function zone. And it means that with something like an aspect of our life, an abstract element of our life like safety, right? There is a point where we are not safe enough, and there is a point where we become too safe. And in between those points, we call the functional zone of, in this case, safety. So we could be functionally safe while being in that zone. We could look to optimize functional safety by looking to get at the higher end of that zone. But we also understand there's a point where we could become too safe. An example that I've used before when talking about this idea is, imagine we were to try and eliminate crossing the street and getting hit by cars. People cross the street, people get hit by cars every day. And we're charged with the idea of, well, how do we make sure that people don't get hit by cars? We could say, well, let's make sure that they look both ways. And that is going to lower the percentage. If nobody was doing anything, they were just walking across the street, get hit by cars. If we made everybody look both ways before crossing, it lowers the probability of them getting hit by a car. Then we could say, look both ways plus cross at the crosswalk. Lowers it even further. Look both ways, cross at the crosswalk, and make sure you're looking for the green light. So you have the light also, the right of way. Increases or reduces the probability of getting hit by a car even further. And we could sit here and play this game of, well, what can we add to make sure that we lower the probability as low as we could possibly lower it? But if somebody were to raise their hand and say, well, I know how to lower it to 0, we would go, how? And he would say, well, just don't cross the street. We would inherently understand that that's not an acceptable answer, even though the outcome of his answer is 0 probability of anybody getting hit by a car. Why would we understand that that wouldn't be an acceptable answer? Because we know no matter how we mitigate this problem of getting hit by cars, we still have to cross the street. So we know there's a certain point where we can become too safe, where it starts to inhibit our ability to actually lead a fulfilling life. That logical exercise then segues into, well, at what point do we individually start becoming too safe in the approach of trying to never or endeavoring to never be not safe enough? I'm somebody that's not motivated by money. I also understand that money is an integral, necessary component to being successful in my life. If at a minimum, for no other reason, then I need a certain amount of money to fulfill my oaths and obligations to the people I'm charged and have obligated myself to provide for. There are people who rely on me for being productive and being able to accumulate resources to distribute, and that is the nature of our relationship, or at least a foundational component of it. So even though I'm not motivated by money, I understand there's still a point where, I got to make money. But there is a point where I won't do something just to make more of it if it takes away from something else. So in my approach to life, I understand that there are things that I need to do. And because these things that I need to do, and I say need to do, I'm actually speaking about the things that motivate me, the things that fulfill me, the things that I would say are pursuant to or congruent with my individual mission in life. But a sort of side component of that is I also need to accumulate resources. Much the same way, as much as we have all these things going on in our lives, we still need to eat. We still need to sleep. We still need to go to the bathroom, right? There are all these things that, are just going to exist concurrent to anything else that's going on. When I look at individuals who I've been looking to coach over the last couple of years, and one of the primary missions of the coaching is a lot of these gentlemen that I coach, they don't have something that they want. Some of them don't have something that they probably need. And embedded in my process is an actual system to achieve it. But that system does not accommodate the feeling or the addiction that some of them have built with this idea of safety. If somebody wants to learn martial arts, I've been teaching martial arts over 20 years at all levels. I want them to be productive. I want them to be functional. I want them to be effective. But at no point do we make safety the primary goal of the martial arts that I teach. So there is this perennial sort of need to put safety in its proper place in your life. When it comes to being safe, there's a point that when it becomes too safe, when it becomes dysfunctional, we wind up reducing movement. We wind up reducing evolution, change, growth, exploration, alliance building. We wind up reducing our ability to do all the things that we would use to define what living is. If the idea of today's talk is finding your freedom, then what's the groundwork for the pursuit of finding one's freedom is, first and foremost, building a functional relationship with where safety should reside in your life. We're so smart, we're stupid. That's one of the things my father used to say. It was a phrase, and I'd be lying if I said he wasn't saying it to me a lot of times. You're so smart, you're stupid. And he would say this whenever I thought I had all the answers. But here he was, from his much more wise, vetted, experienced perspective, just looking at me, just not understanding all the factors involved. Well, very similarly, we as people we have the tendency toward thinking we're in control of more things than we actually are. There's a gentleman that he's like a multimillionaire, pretty wealthy dude, successful business guy who has dedicated his life to like longevity, has dedicated his life to, I forget his name, something Johnson. And this guy, one of the guys in my mastermind group, had put, and I'm actually going to find where he wrote this so I could quote it properly. He had listed it as, I think it was Fred, you wrote this, and says, interesting, this guy's trying to reverse the aging process. And one of the things that I wrote, I put, in my opinion, that guy's going to spend 200 years living a life nobody wants. So, I laugh at my own jokes. But what is the sentiment behind what I'm saying? I'm saying there's something more to the value of life other than its longevity, other than the supply or the surplus of days lived. There's something ingrained in that experience that we should be valuing more than not. Because if I told you, hey, I could give you access to the internet and put you in a box like a prison cell, and you will live till 200, I would say the overwhelming majority of individuals on Earth would realize that that's not how they want to spend 200 years. But when we have people who are doing nothing but designing their life to make sure nothing bad happens to them, they wind up cutting off all the opportunities that are on the other side of those friction-based interactions, because that's what it comes down to. And there's an irony in this. I grew up in the Bronx. I grew up, street savvy, right? I have street smarts, all that stuff. One of the things that you'll be able to tell, and I've pointed this out before, is you can look at kids in the neighborhood, like where my school is right now, which is still in the Bronx, and you could see little kids, 8, 9 years old, and they're crossing the street with confidence. They understand. They are so related to and embedded in the movement patterns of the environment in which they grew up, that watching them cross the street, it's like, there's never any concern. However, you take some people who have never been in a city or grown up in a city. I have a good friend of mine that is from where I live, and a couple of years ago he visited me in the Bronx, and he was walking down the street. Now, he was on the sidewalk. There was no street crossing involved, but without even crossing the street, the guy could not look more out of his element. He looked like a deer, like the way the deer look up here where I live, like walking down the street, just deciding in the middle of the road to chew on some branches or something. Like, that is how out of place he looked, because he did not build the relationship with the thing. Now, here's the point of me bringing that up. Without the relationship with the friction or the potential threats that present themselves in the form of friction, without building a relationship with those aspects of one's life, we tend to become more fragile, which means the very things we're trying to not endure at a low end, we actually wind up exposing ourselves to much higher, dire levels of consequence as a result. Let a kid learn how to cross the street. He'll be able to cross the street on his own. Keep a kid from crossing a street, because you don't want, again, here goes that idea again, you don't want him to get hit by a car. That's fine. He might not get hit by a car, but don't ever expect him to learn how to cross the street either. So there's something to be said for exposing one's vulnerabilities to a process that is going to leave you more powerful on the other end of it. If the idea is finding your freedom, right? That's the topic of today's talk. Finding your freedom, then, is understanding that at first, who would have thunk it, movement is mandatory. We need to keep that process of engaging new experiences, accumulating different skills and experiences that on the other end of the friction that they might sort of cost or ask for in payment in advance, on the other end of it, we're going to be more than who or what we were prior to that process. I'm the guy that has the shirts and the sayings, pressure to power. I've been saying it for a long time, pressure to power. Without pressure, there is no power. Without pressure, any power you have is limited. There is a ceiling on it. It is going to erode, because it's one thing to be the guy who's looking to become more powerful. It's another thing to look at the guy who approaches his life in a way where any power he's accumulated, he's now decided that he wants to press a pause button and just hold on to that development that he's achieved to that point. It's just not the way it works. Right? We have to understand that none of this is ours forever. A point that I made to my mastermind group this morning during our call is information marketing is on its deathbed. And one of the reasons I would say suggest that is it's a bad plan to formulate a business model around owning information. Owning information, there was a time, we could look 10, 15 years ago, where 5 years ago, the people that are still doing it at a high level and doing it correctly, where, yeah, you have some information in the form of DVDs, CDs, a website or whatever the case is, where there's secret hidden information. You sell that, you sell access, and you make a bunch of money. With the internet, with large language model AI platforms, with the platforms like YouTube that incentivizes the dissemination of free information because it's monetized the traffic, not the transaction. Because of all these things that exist now, being the guy that's going to try and build an info business empire is just, it's very short-sighted thinking. You're not going to do it right. So what does that leave then? It leaves having an approach to tangible objects that we're selling people in the form of products, or, which I'm an advocate for, or building relationships that are allowed to evolve and grow along with the dynamics between the two people involved in that relationship. When I wrote TRIBALNOMICS a few years ago, I talked about the synergistic nature of a functional alliance. Well, in business, what is it if not, I am going to provide something, you're going to provide something, and both of us are going to walk away grateful for it, right? There's an economist, I think Ron Baker is his name, and he has this concept that he shared called the double thank you. Pretty much, you're doing business correctly when both parties at the end of the transaction want to say thank you. Not one party says thank you and the other one says you're welcome. There is this double thank you, mechanism in a functional engagement or a functional transaction in business, and that is what we should be looking to design in businesses. Those of you that are on my email, that this Monday I am starting a $9 a month membership community on a platform that I host my mastermind group on separately. But I'm going to start this group, and the whole idea of it is going to be this idea of finding one's freedom. This idea of, hey, there's not hidden information. There's going to be information for you there, but the whole idea of it is, I want to get a bunch of people together who are thinking the same way, who are thinking to themselves, this can't be it. There's got to be something else I have to do. But also understand that sometimes you're in too bad a mood to be productive. Why? Because you don't have enough state-changing good mood rituals at your beck and call, at your disposal. You don't have those tools in the toolbox that are going to bring you from your worst states to your best states. Sometimes, people need some information. They need some training on how to make things productive, on how to actually be successful. But so many people, I'm not going to say all of them, but I would dare say the majority of men that I've come into contact with, the difference between them not making it and making it is just the ability to them to stay in a good mood. So what are some of the things that allow us to keep that productive mindset or state? One of the things is being around people who are doing the same thing. How many times do you guys want to waste your time during a day talking about the fucking football team or complaining about politics or, this is fucked up or that is fucked up, or like, why the fuck do you want to be around these people? Or maybe you just don't understand the cost that you are incurring by being connected to these people regularly. But for a lot of you, it's like, what's the alternative? What am I supposed to do if I don't hang around these people? These are the only people I know. It's exactly right. It's why I do my content in the first place. It's why I write my email. I understand too. And let me say this, there are parts of my relationship that I monetize. Absolutely. Nobody's paying for this video. Nobody's paying for the emails, but I have my mastermind group. I do my coaching. I'm charging for this membership group that I'm starting next week. But understand, for me, and this is full disclosure, I need somebody to talk about these things with. Or I'm going to be the guy who becomes Mr., Grumpy Pants. I'm certainly not at my best. I'm certainly most productive when I'm in a bad state. So I understand, what I would say are my future strengths, or really just acknowledging part of my nature that tends to become a little bit more tactical in my thinking. And in all that tactically driven thinking, I wind up getting grumpy as a result. I wind up tending to look at the glass half empty lens instead of the other, which allows me to keep my movement going, to be more productive, to grow and evolve. As you guys have been following me for any time, as I have, there have been people who have known me for 15, 20 years. And, in that time, I've been the owner of a martial arts school, a jiu-jitsu school. And there's still people 15, 20 years later that they want to talk about the same things that we were talking about 20 years ago. And it's like, wow, are we still talking about that? I use this example. I was explaining this to my mastermind group. I'll share it with you guys. This evolution that occurs sometimes with a group, a collective, whereby, like, let's say that I were to have a great idea for a preschool and a bunch of people joined my preschool. Just go with it for a second. And they joined this preschool and they were so excited about the things that we learned in the preschool that I was able to show them. And at the end of the preschool's curriculum, I come to the conclusion, hey, we're ready for elementary school. How about, guys, I'm going to close this preschool down and I'm going to turn it into an elementary school. And at that point, everybody's like, yeah, we're ready for elementary school. So they decide to join the elementary school and they're having a great time. They're learning the elementary school curriculum. But then we get to the end of the elementary school curriculum and I have that same type of realization. Hey, we're done with this stuff. We need to move on. You know what's next? High school or secondary school education. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to close down this elementary school. I'm going to turn it into a high school. And then you guys could continue to continue your studies, but now at a high school level. Maybe at that point, still the overwhelming majority of people are like, okay, well, all right, high school, let's turn into a high school. We start doing high school. If it doesn't happen at that point, it certainly happens at the next point when I decide to close down high school and turn it into a university when I think we're ready for that. It's certainly, if not one, it's certainly the other, where now a significant portion of them are going, hey, but I like staying in high school. I want to be in high. I don't want to go to university. If you're going to close down this high school and make it a university, make it a college, I'm going to have to go and find another high school. I'm going to find one of these high schools that is never going to change it into a college. Is never going to change it into a university. They're just going to keep it a high school. I want to be a high school guy. All right, I stayed with you from preschool to elementary school, back in high school, but I'm good at high school now. That is my relationship with the people that I've taught and exposed myself to my teachings through over the last 20 years. There were people who had a great time in preschool with me, who continue to have great times in elementary school, even in high school. But as I started moving to the university format, all representative of just, the evolution of the things that I've been addressing with the men that I coach, I've had more and more people as we've gone up, and it's to be expected, I would argue, saying, no, I like elementary school, I'm going to stay here. Or no, I like high school, I'm going to stay here. I do have a few individuals who are like, yeah, I'm ready for university and whatever's beyond that, because they believe in the process. They respect, in this context, they respect my leadership in that process. But there are other people who I can't be a leader for because I'm leading them up the ladder and they're going, no, this rung is for me. I want to stay on this rung right here. And these alliances tend to fall by the wayside as a result. So here's one of the things about, I'm starting this group next week. It's only $9 a month. How come it's not $47 a month, which is my last membership group that I had? Because $9, like, who the fuck doesn't have $9? What's the point of it, though? The point of it is now there is going to be an alternative. There is going to be somewhere you can hang out and people talking about the things that matter. Because when you're having a conversation with somebody that is overlapped with your mission, not only do you get the value of that conversation, but you also simultaneously get to not have to have the conversation about the thing that winds up sabotaging your momentum. Every single time you're talking about sports, you're not talking about your health. Every single time you're talking about, you're complaining about politicians, you are not improving your ability to provide for your family. Like, there is an opportunity cost when it comes to giving your time to processes that have absolutely no return. An investment without a return is a waste. To call something an investment is not in the expectations of a return. To call something an investment and have it actually be one is to say that there is a return. Remember early on, I said when people aren't exposed to pressure, they wind up becoming so fragile that the things that they were becoming safe from, actually they become more vulnerable to. Whereas sometimes when we engage these necessary pressures early on, we do it at such a level of low consequence that it just presents itself as friction. But once we're past it, we now have a sort of immunity, to its impact on us, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. Whereas some people, they're backing themselves into a corner when it comes to exposing themselves to risk, and they become so risk averse, their life looks like the equivalent of the boy in the bubble. These people find a nice, safe job, and they live within their means and then some, because they're so scared and paranoid about taking any risk. Well, newsflash, those guys die just like everybody else. And then at the end of it, it's like, how healthy do you want to be when you die? I don't think anybody's lived a great life that at the end of it can say he's never done anything wrong. He's never failed. He's never seen adversity. I wouldn't say it's a badge of honor or merit that one says, I've never engaged adversity. I've avoided adversity at every turn. There's not something redeeming about that, if that was one story at the end of their life. So then what's the alternative? The alternative is understanding, not only do we have to engage some things that might be uncomfortable, but there's actually virtue in that engagement. There's going to be value in exposing yourself to a process where there's a little bit of uncertainty. There's a little bit of known risk. There's unknown risk, right, that you acknowledge. Everybody's got unknown risk. Not everybody acknowledges it. You get the people that live the small little life with their small little aspirations, and they think they have this tyrant's level of control over everything in their life, and then one of them gets sick, one of them gets into an accident. It's like the universe reminds you that you're not in control. Some people are so smart, they're stupid enough to think they are, right? The safeties we seek are the very chains that bind us. Understand that a lot of these, sports talks and complaining about politicians, because, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, complaining about politicians becomes complaining about sports very quickly. Same mechanism, because a lot of these things that wind up not doing anything productive for us, they do something that we benefit from, and that is catharsis. These things wind up taking a cathartic function in our lives. They become the things that we do in order to feel better. But just like the person who is dysfunctionally pursuant of safety, the person who has these unproductive rituals be the means by which they feel better and deal with the stress and anxiety of their lives, they wind up becoming more vulnerable as a result. I've been fortunate in my life to be connected to what I would call masters of certain disciplines: business, martial arts, philosophy, art. And these individuals, one of the things that these individuals have in common, as I've observed, is an acceptance that not everybody is going to climb the ladder like they are. It's one of the hardest things that I had to learn. I was using that school metaphor earlier, closing the preschool, turning it into an elementary school, closing the elementary school, turning it into a high school. All of this obviously representative of just the process of evolving with my tribe. But one of the hardest things that I had to deal with was letting people go. as I evolved. And why was that so difficult? Because a lot of these people I allowed to become the processes by which I felt better about the stresses of my life. These were the people I had to stay connected to so I could deal with the anxiety and stresses of just being a productive man in society. But what happens when the dysfunctional allies and their dysfunctional alliances become the means by which you know how to stay emotionally productive and emotionally functional? It's a paradox. It's a trap. That's why I don't have the individuals that I'm connected to be the primary, I would say, source of catharsis. I have rituals that are disconnected to the fallible allies that I'm surrounded with, like anybody else. I'm just as fallible as these other people, but in that fallibility, that imperfection, that the nature of individuals that allows us to have all of these issues that we're constantly dealing with, it would be wise to not sort of bank or rely on those individuals to be the sole source of you remaining emotionally functional. I haven't done any work with battered spouses, so I'm only speculating, and I could be off here. So please just take it as the speculative hypothetical that it is. But I would argue that there's something validating in an abused spouse being with their abusive counterpart, their abusive partner. I would argue that there is something that allows them to be consistent in their relationship with who they are when they are connected. There is a value that partner, that albeit the abusive partner, but that partner fills, that if removed, the abused partner sees themselves as being dysfunctional. So we know they're in a bad way if they're in this situation. You have the wife that's getting beaten up by her abusive husband, but she refuses to leave him because she doesn't know who she is if she is not a wife. It's a problem. You have these individuals, these individuals that I know, they want to complain. There's so much to complain about. We wake up every morning and put on our complain hat, we're not going to run out of material. I'll tell you that right now. But when do we take the hat off to put on our be productive hat? And what is the argument? What is the situation where we have to take off the be productive hat to put on the complaining one? Not a lot of arguments to make that transition from one way or the other, but from the complainer to the be productive, every argument in the world. But still, a lot of people complain because they feel better. Me right now, I go on hikes. I go on a lot of hikes. I went on a 10-mile hike the other day. My feet are still fucking killing me, but 10.6 miles, but who's counting? Why do I go on hikes? Number one, it's something that I could do that doesn't rely on anybody else. I like hiking when the weather isn't great too, which is an added benefit because I'm not restricted to those good weather days. Doesn't matter, sunny, hot, cold, raining, whatever. I look forward to the winter where I'll be hiking, in snow and things like that. I doesn't have a problem. I still get something out of it. I'm very fortunate that that's the case. But another thing that I do when I'm hiking is I read, right? It's audiobooks, but I do a lot of my reading. When I'm home, I have a wife, 4 kids, I got a dog, we got a lot of things going on. Sometimes it's very hard in my off time to just spend time reading in a way that I stay focused. Not that everybody doesn't help, create an environment for me to be able to do that. But I'll be honest, if I'm home and there's something going on, I usually tend to want to go and do that. It's hard to set aside the time to just invest in myself. Well, one of the things that hiking does for me is it's a ritual where I can get some of that reading done. I can get some of that creative work done. And it's been a great asset because of that. But now imagine, instead of me going hiking, all the benefits from that ritual I put on another individual. Oh, I got to hang out with this guy because when I'm hanging out with this guy, that's when I can read and do all that. Let's just say that that's the case. Well, this guy has his own inconsistencies, his own things that he needs to work on, his own vulnerabilities. So if he is not lockstep with me in pursuit of that mission, there is going to be an offset that just represents him doing what he's going to do. So it helps to surround ourselves with people who are on the same page. When I'm going hiking and doing these things, another thing that I'm not doing is sitting somewhere talking about fucking sports or sitting online and go, fucking Biden did this and this guy did that and Putin, Zelensky, and like, what the fuck are these things doing for your ability to provide for your family? You know, and like, listen, I'm not saying these things don't belong on the list, but be honest with yourself. How many things are ahead of the priority list and complaining about those things? It's very easy. I have an easy filter when it comes to complaining. If somebody's going to complain about something, you tell them to shut the fuck up. Right? It could stop there, but there's actually more. You say, well, what's the problem? They say what the problem is to complain. Do something about it. I can't do something about it. They shut the fuck up. Do something about it. Oh, all right, I'll do something about it. All right, you're good. But as soon as they don't want to do the thing that they can do, tell them to shut the fuck up. Because they should be doing something about it. And if they can't do something about it, they should also shut the fuck up. Because they can't do anything about it. The whole thing is, it's like when somebody complains, it's like they open up a case. Oh, the case is open now. We got to address the case. Well, how do we close this case as fast as possible? We find out what to do. Is there something we can do? No. Then close the fucking case, throw it out, shut the fuck up. There's nothing else we need to discuss for it. Yeah, but when I talk about these things, I feel better because it lets me, direct my aggravation and frustration and rage on somebody that I'll never actually affect in the real world. But if I'm talking about them, I feel, but it's like you are training yourself to be a loser. You are training yourself to lose, in other words. People who train themselves to win, first and foremost, they learn what to focus on and simultaneously what not to focus on. Learning how to do the right thing, learning how to be productive. And this is the pursuit of any discipline's mastery. It's one part what to do, one part what not to do. That relationship is the cycle of movement that allows one to increase their mastery of a given discipline. But if you're a catharsis just complaining about things you can't change, that you have no effect on, it winds up being a cathartic experience, a cathartic ritual that will connect you to other people that are also unproductive. Because here's the thing. If you're somebody that has the unproductive ritual of complaining about sports or politics, you will find a tribe of people who are just as unproductive as you are. And now what happens when there's a whole fucking clan of you guys complaining about shit you have absolutely no influence over? All of you are collectively agreeing to regress to the mean. And you're all going to find that setting of your group. And you're all going to stay within there, lest you lose the one social outlet that is connected to your ability to deal with your stress and anxiety. This is how these things are connected. So what do? You preemptively remind yourself. You make yourself aware. Not everybody's going to be here. If you're going to invest in yourself, some of these people are going to go, and you got to be okay with that. Or not. Do what the fuck you want. Once you understand that not everybody's going to be there, then you start to say, well, who should I be around then? And you find the groups of people that are on the same page, that are vibing at the same frequency as you are. The people who are headed up that same ladder. People who climb. All right, guys. I'm good. A bunch of you guys made comments on them, and I appreciate all of them. I appreciate all you guys hanging out. I'll tell you what. On Monday, I'm starting my new group. It's going to be $9 a month. Get on my email list if you're not. I will allow you guys to know what's going on behind the scenes via those emails. It starts Monday. It's going to be an incredible experience, community time, all that good stuff. But if not, I hope you got something out of this message. If you're watching these things and you are not subscribed to the page or playing the game that we all know, then these things don't go anywhere. Now, I've had other people in the past tell me, well, I kind of don't want to share it because I like having this information, and being able to share this stuff with my people and not have everybody know what I'm thinking about. And that's fine. Do what you want. But if you want to support what it is that I'm doing here, then play the game as we know to play it. All right, guys, I appreciate you all. Thank you for spending time. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.